So, here recently, Zizaran made a video talking about whether or not Path of Exile actually needs a campaign. And as some of you may or may not know, this is a topic that I am relatively passionate about in PoE. I think that this is, unironically, one of the biggest problems that current Path of Exile faces, and GGG has been unbelievably hard-headed about this. I would say that the biggest feedback that I get as to why people don't want to play the current league or maybe never make a second character in any league that they play is simply because the campaign is such a slog. Now, in interviews, Chris has always said, well, PoE 2 is just going to be better, the campaign's going to be better, you're going to be able to replay it a million times and it's going to be fun, it's going to be different every time, and that's fine, but the thing that I always say whenever anybody brings up this topic or all of those arguments come through is that if I have a book that I love reading, right, it could be my absolute favorite book of all time. I could probably read that book once a year and be relatively happy with it, maybe even a couple times a year and be okay with it. But if I have to read that book 3 or 4 times in a row in the course of, say, like 2 weeks, I am going to be absolutely sick of it. It doesn't matter if it's my favorite book of all time. I'm going to hate it by the end of the third or fourth read within those first few weeks. So I really don't see any reasonable argument to make it so that we need to do the campaign more than one time per league. For someone like myself, or a very experienced player, or someone who is playing in hardcore, or any of these kinds of people, this is really not an issue. We can spend a little bit of money on some leveling gear, take maybe 4 or 5 hours and level up a new character through the campaign and be completely fine. However, for a more casual player, 4 or 5 hours is like their whole, maybe week's worth of time to play the game that they've got. If you are like a busy parent, or you have like a very intense job that you work a lot of hours, and on the weekend you just want to spend, a couple of hours on Saturday and Sunday playing Path of Exile, do you really want to dedicate your entire 4 or 5 hours that you've got on that weekend to just leveling a new character and not even really having fun yet? I personally would like to see one of two things happen, or actually I would like to see both of these things happen. My first thing would be somewhat very similar to what Zizaran said: just give us insanely overpowered leveling tech. Like, let us make our characters absolute gods and just zoom straight through the campaign, no problem whatsoever. There is absolutely ways to balance this where it's not going to affect the integrity of the endgame or anything like that, and just make it things that are only reasonable to happen to us on a second character or once we've gotten gear. They seem to have this like obsession now, or this is their excuse that they're using, that they want to balance things for racers and stuff like that. But most people genuinely don't care about this like PoE esports, whatever you want to call it. Esports is kind of in the gutter anyways nowadays. Like, people are caring less and less and less about esports as time goes on. And on top of that, it is such a minute, small, itty bitty portion of the community that all of these changes are seemingly being made for, and everyone else is just like, why is Act 2 and Act 1 so much harder than the rest of them? And why are we making the campaign more difficult, even if it's only minorly difficult? Like, this is already a slog. Why make it more difficult in any way whatsoever? So here's what I would like to change. Give us those super powerful items and let us invest into crazy strong leveling characters, right? And at the same time, give us alternative ways to level up our second, third, or fourth character that are either a little bit more personalized. Like I've said in the past, why can't we have something like, if you have mastered a certain style of content, allow us to use that as a new leveling path? So nowadays, if you have defeated the Maven, right, why would we not be able to do some kind of like alternative mapping system from level 1, right? So just complete quests and share waypoints with every single character on your entire account for the entire league. If you complete all of the quests in the game, start your new character with what, like 20 passive points or something like that, and then on top of that, give them all the waypoints, give them all the quest completion, and allow them, if they want to be like, yeah, I want to redo the campaign and reset all of that, or just be like, no, I want to do something else, right? This was a system that was implemented in World of Warcraft in Shadowlands, where you could just kind of like do random stuff instead. Like, you could just run dungeons, or you could just run random world quests and things like that. Give us endless heists, give us endless delve, give us a mapping system from level 1, give us just some alternative stuff that already exists in the game as just options for people to do if they want to do it, if they don't like doing the campaign. Even if it's just, you know, like complete all the quests and just let us go farm in some random zones that we like, right? Just whatever it is, I feel like we just need something else that can streamline this process of leveling down to like maybe 2 hours. If we could get that, I think a lot more people would play second characters, third characters, and maybe even fourth characters. Now, touching on the topic of whether or not it actually physically needs a campaign, I think the obvious answer here is yes, of course Path of Exile needs a campaign, because the very first time that you go through, I think that players need to be handheld just a little bit. Path of Exile is definitely a game that has a lot of breadth and a lot of just depth to it, where there is so many things to do. I personally feel like the whole idea of taking a new player and just completely tossing them to the wolves and giving up 100% on giving them a little bit more of a handcrafted experience through is kind of lazy these days, if I'm going to be honest with you. I'm super hopeful that the new Path of Exile 2 campaign is going to do a significantly better job of teaching players how to interact with all the different mechanics in the game, instead of just, you know, just being like, oh, there you go, good luck, let's see if you make it. And if you don't, go look up your favorite third-party people and search up a YouTube video or a guide on Reddit or a guide on the forums or whatever else to be able to even get through the campaign and understand your character or anything, right? I hope we get just a little bit more effort put into these areas so that more people can play the game, because in an economy-based game, having more people participating in the economy is just better for everyone. It keeps prices down, it keeps the flow of items going, and it would just be nice to actually be able to tell like friends and stuff, hey, I play this game called Path of Exile, you should try it out. Because right now, I would be embarrassed to tell anybody to try and play this game, honestly. I would not suggest it to any of my friends, ever. It would not be something that I would tell them to do. So here's hoping that GGG realizes after they put out the PoE 2 campaign and people still have these complaints after like 6 months, that they'll give us some alternative options. And remember, boys, if you enjoy this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in raid class, and I'll see you guys in the next video.